and bracket out. Now you can see the water pump. Don't take the belt off yet, we're going to need to, because we want some resistance on this pulley from spinning with the tension of the belt, so we can take off the pulley bolts, which are these Torx, or some people call them E-sockets, or square sockets, double square sockets. The size, E12. Right there, we're going to take the pulley off, then the belt. Okay, I already busted them loose with the ratchet. I'm lucky enough to have pneumatic tools here. Okay, so here's the water pump. We have access to it. Has a little hose going to it here, over to the thermostat housing, and to the lower radiator hose. So to help get to the pump, when we're pulling it off, we don't want to try to bump this sensor or this connector here. Same thing over. You also have a sensor on the thermostat housing we got to take off. And this one right here. We kind of want to get this out of our way. We might as well do it. These clips, let me get close here. That pops down and out before you can squeeze it and pop them off. Some people will fight these and end up breaking them. They'll break pretty easy. So again, this white tab, pop it down, then squeeze on it, and it should come out. Okay, I'm going to get those off, and I'll show you what's next. On the thermostat housing, this clip is a little different. I don't want to break it. Let me see if I can get the camera in there. You need to get your screwdriver up under that, pull it out towards you this way, and get it under there, and then push up on it. Or pull with your other hand while you're doing that, and it should come off. See? That easy. Just like that. We'll try one more time here. Like I said, they can be difficult, but be careful because they will break pretty easily. There we go. Just need one little last pry. Get that up out of the way. Again, get that rag in that intake tube. Okay, one more clip right here. And it's actually on the other side. It has the same style I showed you earlier, where you pull out that white tab towards you and then squeeze it. Alright, this is the lower hose going to the radiator. I'm using a long hook tool, as you can see. Goes way down there. I'm going to pull that clip out just like that. This is hard to film. There we go. Clip off. Now I'm going to pull that hose off. It's kind of in a tight spot, so it's really hard to see. There's that clip. Put that aside. I'm going to let it flow. I have a bucket and a bunch of rags under there. Also, when you have the belt off, you might want to spin the tensioner, any idler bearings, feel it to see if it wobbles, see if it's noisy, which this one's okay. You can even do that to the alternator. Water pump, you can actually feel it. It actually clunks a little bit. Feels weird when you spin it. Check everything while you're in here. Alright, right now we're taking out the bolts to the water pump, but I'm going to show you a trick. This thing has, let's see, here's the new one I laid out on the air filter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bolts. And they literally are all different lengths. Look at that. Okay, so you're going to want to be able to remember which one to put them into so you don't run into any big problems. So as you can see here, what I've done is I set the new water pump out to the side on an air filter or something like that, and as I take the bolts out of the one on the engine, the leaky water pump, so I take them out. Let me grab it here with one hand, try not to drop everything. Okay, I will walk right over to the new one, and where I took it out from, I will set it in. That way we're keeping track. And then what I'm going to do is take off the old water pump, set it next to this one, transfer those same bolts over to that, because then now I need to work with this water pump. I need to flip it over, put the sealer on it, the gasket, let that dry a little bit, and then put it on the vehicle. So we're going to come back to that once I get the water pump off. I'll show you. You're going to try to pry off the water pump, right? And it's going to feel like it's still part of the engine block. Now some people will try to pry, find a spot to grab and pry to get the water pump to bust loose because it will be stuck to the engine block. Do not pry here. Aluminum, it will break, and this is pretty solid and it's not a good angle. You have all these spots you think you can pry on, you're going to end up breaking something. I'll give it a couple good whacks right here. Just ka, 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 ka. Just kind of the vibration. At the same time I do that, I will be grabbing the thermostat housing over here and pulling on it. And just give it a good vibration while you're banging it, and it will bust loose. Okay, at the beginning of this video, I was showing you the tools you're going to need for this job. Now, this tool has pliers, squeeze it, has a cable that goes to this tip right here. That's for grabbing those squeeze style, the stock Chevy squeeze style hose clamps. This thing will come in so handy if you can go down to O'Reilly's, Kragen's, whatever parts store you have near you and get one of these. Because I mean, you can squeeze those style clamps I was talking about right here with some pliers, you know, grab it each end with the pliers. You squeeze it right there and then you could slide the clamp back. But when it comes to this one that's behind the thermostat housing, right down in here, you can barely even see it, and where it's at, you're not going to get pliers on it. I mean, you could leave it on until the water pumps out, and then you can move it down and get some needle nose pliers in there, which I showed you can also use, but it's a pain. But that's where it is super, super nice, really nice, to have this tool here. Like I said, you can do that. That squeezes the clamp. You can wiggle it, and then scoot it down. Work it, hit it, get into it. Jeez. Almost there. See, can you imagine trying to get up in there, some pliers and get that? I don't think so. You can see we're gonna have to clean off that silicone from where someone did the water pump before. Probably use kind of a slightly dulled down razor blade because you don't want to dig into the aluminum to help kind of scrape off some of that silicone. Now you don't want to use, well, if you use any kind of wheel, don't use a sanding disc or one of those Scotch-Brite sanding disc on like an angle grinder. The speed of that will actually take off some aluminum and you're not going to seal again. If you use anything, you want to use a real light wire wheel and be very careful and nice and even. But still, I'd rather do these by hand. So now what I'm going to do, like I said, is transfer these so they end up back in the same spot. But I need to take them out of the new one from their location so I can work with the new one, turn it over, seal the gasket on that pump before I put it in. Hey, hey. Little Permatex aviation forma gasket sealant. Put that on the water pump. Tack the gasket to it, let it dry so that way hopefully it doesn't slip when I go to stick it on. Hey, hey. Check that out. Nice and clean. Got all that silicone off. New water pump with gasket and sealer are on there. Now you do a crisscross pattern. So I kind of started here. If you want to evenly bring it down, tighten it up a little bit, not all the way to the torque, and you go in a crisscross pattern like that, kind of around there, the center one. This right here, torque wrench in inch pounds. This vehicle calls for 71 inch pounds. Just go until it clicks, and then I just go ahead and go all the way around to make sure they are all at the right torque. And then what I'm going to do next is put the thermostat housing with that hose underneath there on it. The hose, this heater hose fitting right here. Put that heater hose on. Then it's just left as the pulley, the belt, and the motor mount. Go in reverse from everything I showed you. Okay, after torquing the water pump bolts, which some are water pump bolts, and some of the bolts that go through the water pump the reason they're longer, they're actually like the timing cover bolts. They're going through and holding that to the block. You want to go ahead and spin the water pump shaft where the pulley is going to go to make sure that after you torqued it, you're not rubbing the timing cover, the block, and something's binding up. So you want to make sure that's spinning freely. Okay, dokey. Lower radiator is going on. Already clicked the bottom. They have grooves. They'll only go on one way. There's a groove on the bottom of that fitting. There's a groove here. Now O-rings slide on here. So what I do is I spray a little bit of silicone spray. You want it to be like a silicone lube or spray because these O-rings are pretty dry and it's tough to slide it on. You really have to force it on. So that will help it slide on. It's not going to hurt the rubber O-rings, the silicone spray. So again, you just line up that bottom groove. You can feel it kind of like lock in. This is going to be hard with one hand again. And it just clicks on just like that. Boom. Should seal. No tightening hose clamp. They seem to work pretty good. Make sure all the connectors are plugged back in. The heater hose on the back side of the thermostat housing. The heater hose there. Now I'm just going to put the pulley on, the belt, and then the motor mount. Okay. Now onto the water pump. I put the water pump pulley on. I put the 3 bolts in, only finger tight, because it's going to spin when you're trying to tighten it. It does have a spot for a wrench right here. In order to torque these bolts to the right specs, I put the belt on with these finger tight so that'll help keep it from spinning, and then try to tighten them, torque them. And if that doesn't work, you get a wrench on there, like I said, a crescent wrench, maybe in straight, and try to hold it with the tension of the belt on it too. Now in order to get the belt on after it's routed, which goes around the alternator, this way around the tensioner, back in between the tensioner and the crank pulley, around the crank pulley, around this, and then I'm going to set it up on top of the water pump pulley. That's the AC. This is the tensioner. It takes, you can see that Torx bit, an E-socket. It takes a, the size on there, E14. You just set it right on there. Again, trying stuff with one hand here while I'm holding this stinking phone. Okay, and see you're going to do that, and you're going to go righty-tighty. You're going to push it down. See how it compresses that spring and puts the tensioner down? That'll give you some slack to put this on. Okay, make sure to get a flashlight. Make sure that the belts are properly on all of them. Sometimes you can get one tooth off when you go to start it. It'll fly off. So you want to do that from underneath on the crank and the AC as well. So now I'm going to torque these. As you can see, if you do use a wrench to hold the pulley from turning while you're torquing these to 16 foot-pounds, this is the water pump pulley, it kind of goes in at an angle, so you might not be able to keep it spinning. There's supposed to be a special wrench for that. And then in order to torque this one, which this is in the way, I have to turn it around. Torque that. Again, 16 foot-pounds with your E-socket. This one is a E12. Right there, gonna torque it. Alright, motor mount bracket is bolted to the engine block. The 3 bolts, one here, one down below, one there, 45 foot-pounds. Alright, next the motor mount. Okay, good old motor mount is in. 3 bolts that go through the motor mount to the body of the vehicle, and this one nut, 46 foot-pounds. The 3 that actually go into the aluminum bracket for the motor mount to the engine, these 3, right there, 37 foot-pounds. Next, air box, air filter, top of the air box with the air intake tube. Don't forget to take out the rag. Don't want rag in engine, okay? Okay. I'm topping off the coolant reservoir, which is right next to the master cylinder. Don't get those mixed up. You do not want coolant in the master cylinder. Takes the red Dex Cool, orange, you could say. Anyways, you're going to want to fill it up to this red.